Alright, welcome back to the Blender 3 Docwalks. This is the configuring peripherals section. Blender recommends having full HD displays or higher, and it also supports multi-monitor setup, so you can have multiple monitors set up and different different workspaces configured for each of your monitors. Blender supports multiple input devices, keyboards, mice, 3D mice, and graphic tablets, which I have yet to use a 3D mouse, but they look amazing, and I hear a lot of good things. So we're going to go over everything in a second here. If you are missing any certain type of input device, there are different ways of reconfiguring the input preferences so that Blender can adapt to use either limited or different specific devices to act as other devices. So let's start with a mouse. Okay, if you only have a 2-button mouse, again, we can go into Preferences, go up to Edit, down to Preferences, and in Input Devices, you have your mouse. You have your mouse options, and the first one top here says Emulate 3-button mouse. When you click on that, you can use Alt to help emulate that. So what you would do is hold down Alt while you do your normal left click, and that would emulate the traditional middle mouse button. Again, up here for keyboard, you have Emulate Numpad. When you do use this, it will emulate a traditional 10 key or numpad type of a keyboard. However, it's going to take away the native capability of having quick access to quick access to layer visibility. When you click Emulate Numpad, instead of using the traditional 10 key number pad, you will instead use the numbers across the top of your keyboard. Now, the Blender documentation recommends that even if you don't have an English keyboard, or if you have a non-English keyboard, you can still benefit from keeping the input type to either UK or US keyboard layout. You'll still benefit from that, and it will still work with Blender. Blender also supports graphics tablets. Personally, I use a XP pen. I know a lot of people like Wacom's or Wacom's, however you pronounce that. But in the notes here, they recommend that if the sensitivity doesn't work, to place the mouse pointer in the Blender window and then unplug and replug the tablet, and apparently that occasionally helps. All right, so let's move on to end-off or 3D mice devices. I didn't know what end-off stood for until just now. Apparently it stands for number of degrees of freedom, and there's several brilliant ones. A couple I've always wanted to get my hands on and try, but here are a few examples. This is one of the more basic 3D connection devices. They also have, I think this is their higher end model, the Space Mouse, and this is, I'm not sure, this might just be a variation, a lower quality variant. But I've also heard quite a bit lately about loop decks. They look really interesting, and I've heard a lot of really good things about them. So just throwing out options there. But okay, so yeah, you can configure those. It's pretty basic, same sort of thing. If you want to get into exactly how to do it, most 3D mice and end-off devices have software they come with that you can configure either from the device itself or with the software package. So that's about it for that. Let's move on to head-mounted displays, VR devices. So Blender supports a variety of head-mounted displays, though a lot of it is still kind of in its infancy. So I wouldn't expect too much. If it gets really buggy, I wouldn't be too frustrated with it. Blender's VR support is through a platform called OpenXR, and these are the recommended platforms which use OpenXR, Monado, Oculus, Steam VR, and Windows Mixed Reality. Okay, so we're going to go through each of these systems really quickly and talk about how to get it set up with Blender. First, we are going to be talking about Oculus. Oculus provides a prototype OpenXR support, so there aren't, not everything works, but in order to get Oculus to work correctly, Blender has to be launched in a very specific way. So you download and install the Oculus Rift software. You start Blender by double-clicking the Blender_Oculus script inside the installation directory. It will open a command line window with a bunch of instructions, and from there you enable the VR Scene Inspection add-on in Blender, which we are going to go over much later, but just so you know, we will be covering that in a little bit. Okay, moving on to Steam VR. OpenXR support in Steam VR is a developer preview. You need Steam VR beta features, so you have to enable Steam VR beta updates. If you want to know how to do that, follow this link. It explains that. So you launch Steam VR and set it as the default as the default OpenXR runtime library. And then again, as before, you enable the VR Scene Inspection add-on inside Blender, which again, we will go over later. Windows Mixed Reality. This is a little bit more involved. So Windows has a Windows Mixed Reality kind of check application. It ensures that your system can handle Windows Mixed Reality. They want you to make sure that you have Windows 10 May 2019 update, the 1903 update. They do note that if the system can handle it, Windows should have already installed the Mixed Reality portal. Either way, it is available in the Microsoft Store. So launch Mixed Reality portal, click the menu button in the lower left corner, and in the menu that comes up, select the Setup OpenXR option. Then, as before, enable the VR Scene Inspection add-on, which again we'll go over later. And if you want to know more, they have a link to the Windows Getting Started guide for OpenXR. Okay, now Monado is an open source XR platform for Linux. It's not yet in production, so there's very limited usage, and it just warns that you should only be using it for testing purposes. There are packages available for both Ubuntu and Debian, and if you want it for any other Linux system, you're going to have to compile the code yourself. So if you're not comfortable with that, it just recommends not to mess around, because if you don't know how to compile from source, it can get pretty hairy. Okay, so that is about it for configuring peripherals. The whole 3D section was a little much, but yeah, let's move on.